At 94 years old, Charles Duke remains the youngest human being to ever walk on the moon, and one of only 4 moonwalkers still alive to tell the story. He was the voice in Neil Armstrong's ear during humanity's first lunar landing. "We were late landing, so we didn't. We were supposed to land and suit up and go outside, but mission control cancelled that. Said you'd be up too late, you might make a mistake or so nervous." He mangled Tranquility into Tranquility on live broadcast to 500 million people. 3 years later, he left something on the lunar surface that no other astronaut has ever done: a photograph of his wife and 2 young sons with a message on the back for whoever might find it. "Dropped the picture on the moon. Took my camera and bent over and took a picture of it." But here's what Duke has spent decades explaining to anyone who will listen: walking on the moon didn't change his life. What happened 6 years later did, and at 94, he's determined to share that story before his time runs out. The voice of Apollo. Before Charles Duke ever set foot on the moon, his voice was already part of history. He served as Capcom, capsule communicator, the only person permitted to speak directly with the astronauts during flight. On July 20, 1969, Duke sat at the Capcom console in Mission Control in Houston. Neil Armstrong had personally requested him for the job.so when the Eagle descended toward the Sea of Tranquility with only seconds of fuel remaining. It was Duke who called out the warnings: 60 seconds. 30 seconds. Behind him, Chief Astronaut Deke Slayton muttered, "Shut up, Charlie, and let him land." The tension in Mission Control was suffocating. Computer alarms had been firing throughout the descent. Armstrong had taken manual control to avoid a boulder field. Every screen showed the fuel gauge dropping toward empty. Then Armstrong's voice crackled through, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." Duke was so overwhelmed he couldn't get the words out straight. "Roger, twang. Tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot." That fumbled response, broadcast live to over 500 million people, became one of the most famous moments in space history. Duke has never been embarrassed by it. "That is the truth," he said decades later. "We were holding our breath. It was so tense." While the world celebrated Armstrong and Aldrin's moonwalk, Duke went home. He watched the first steps on television like everyone else. The voice that had guided humanity to another world was still just an observer. That would change 3 years later. Duke served as backup crew for the doomed Apollo 13 mission, though not without incident. He'd caught German measles from his 3-year-old son and accidentally exposed the prime crew, forcing Ken Mattingly off the flight just days before launch. The crew nicknamed Duke Typhoid Mary. But when Mattingly was reassigned to Apollo 16, Duke came with him. In April 1972, at 36 years and 201 days old, Charles Duke became the 10th human being, and the youngest ever, to walk on the moon. 71 hours on another world. Apollo 16 launched on April 16, 1972. The destination was the Descartes Highlands, a region scientists believed held volcanic secrets about the moon's formation. Duke served as lunar module pilot alongside Commander John Young, while Ken Mattingly orbited above in the command module. The mission nearly ended before it began. As the command module separated from the lunar module, one of its engines malfunctioned. Without that engine, Mattingly couldn't maintain the precise orbit needed to retrieve Young and Duke after their surface work. NASA ordered a delay. For 6 tense hours, the crew circled the moon while engineers on Earth debated whether to abort entirely. Mattingly finally got the engine working on the far side of the moon, out of radio contact with Houston. The landing was back on. Duke still remembers the moment his boots touched lunar soil. "When I stepped on the surface, one of the overwhelming thoughts was, I'm really here. I'm finally on the moon. 2 years of training had paid off, and here I am." He described feeling wonder, awe, and something unexpected, beauty. It was a beautiful place, gray in color, very rough terrain. As Buzz Aldrin called it, magnificent desolation. Over the next 71 hours, Duke and Young drove the lunar rover across terrain never before touched by humans. They collected 209 pounds of rock and soil samples, some of the most scientifically valuable ever returned from the moon. They deployed seismic experiments, magnetometers, and spectrometers that would continue transmitting data long after they departed, but Duke also took time for something personal. On his final day on the surface, he placed a small plastic-wrapped photograph on the lunar dust. It showed his family, his wife Dorothy, his 7-year-old son Charles III, and his 5-year-old son Thomas. On the back, Duke had written, "This is the family of astronaut Charlie Duke from planet Earth, who landed on the moon on April 20, 1972. The idea had come from wanting his sons to feel connected to the mission they were too young to fully understand, just to get the kids excited about what Dad was going to do," Duke later explained. "I said, would you all like to go to the moon with me? We can take a picture of the family and so the whole family can go to the moon." He photographed it lying in the gray dust, then walked away. That photograph remains on the moon today, though Duke suspects it hasn't survived well. After all these years, the temperature of the moon every month goes up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit in our landing area, and at night, it drops almost to absolute zero. Shrink wrap doesn't turn out too well in those temperatures. The mission also included a moment that nearly killed Duke. He and Young decided to hold informal Moon Olympics, high jumps and broad jumps to test the 1/6 gravity. Duke got ambitious. "I made a big push off the moon, getting about 4 feet high," he recalled. "But as I straightened up, the weight of my backpack pulled me over backward. Now I was coming down on my back." Panic hit instantly. The thought that he'd die raced across his mind. The suit and backpack weren't designed to support a 4-foot fall. Had the backpack broken or the suit split open, he would have lost his air. He bounced on his back and survived. The Moon Olympics ended immediately. Apollo 16 splashed down on April 27, 1972. Duke had logged over 265 hours in space and more than 20 hours walking on another world. He was celebrated everywhere: schools, museums, television appearances. A genuine American hero, but inside, something was wrong. The emptiness after the moon. "After walking on the moon, I was bored." That's how Duke describes the years following Apollo 16. Fame, fortune, a place in history, he had everything the world said should matter. But if you'd been inside his home, you would have seen a different picture. "I was failing miserably as a husband and father." The drive that had pushed Duke to the moon was still there, burning inside him. But he'd already reached the top. "Where do you go after walking on another world?" "I was pumped up, as you can imagine, having just experienced this great adventure, and I wanted to go again." He volunteered for the backup crew of Apollo 17, hoping for one more chance. But the program was ending. There would be no more moon missions. Duke left NASA in 1976 and threw himself into business, distribution companies, investments, software ventures. The money rolled in. The emptiness remained. "I took my eyes off the moon and put them on money," he admitted. "I thought making a business and making a lot of money would satisfy this drive that I still had. But business didn't do it." Meanwhile, his marriage was falling apart. His wife Dorothy had sunk into depression, even suicidal thoughts. Duke was absent, consumed by work. His relationship with his sons was strained. "Though I had gone to church all my life," Duke explained, "I had all of God I needed in that 1 hour every Sunday morning. Even the moon had not been a spiritual experience. I wasn't looking for God. Then Dorothy changed. In 1975, she attended a Bible study and surrendered her life to Jesus Christ. Duke watched the transformation with skepticism at first, then growing wonder. Her depression lifted. Her outlook shifted. She became, in his words, a different person. For 2.5 years, Duke observed. He wrestled with doubts. He'd been trained as a scientist, immersed in theories of cosmic evolution. He remembered picking up a moon rock during Apollo 16 and being told one end dated to 3.9 billion years while the other end dated to 1.6 billion years, 2 billion years between 6 inches. He recalled thinking something was wrong somewhere. Finally, in April 1978, almost exactly 6 years after walking on the moon, Duke attended a weekend Bible study. "I gave my heart to Jesus," he said, "and that started my walk." The change wasn't instant, but it was real. Duke began reading scripture obsessively. He felt convicted about his priorities, his treatment of his family, and the emptiness he'd tried to fill with achievement. Slowly, through what he describes as forgiveness and love, his marriage healed and his relationships with his sons were rebuilt. "The Lord gave me the ability to put Him first in my life," Duke explained. "My walk on the moon lasted 3 days, and it was a great adventure, but my walk with God lasts forever." The message he wants you to hear at 94, Charles Duke is one of only 4 living humans who have walked on the moon. Buzz Aldrin, Dave Scott, and Harrison Schmitt are the others. When their voices go silent, first-hand testimony of humanity's greatest exploration will end forever. Duke knows this. It's why he still travels the world, speaking at events, churches, schools, anywhere people will listen. He and Dorothy founded Duke Ministry for Christ, sharing their testimony wherever invitations come. "We get invitations all over the world," Duke has said. Some for space-related events and others for faith-based events, but at all of them, we try to find a way to witness for Jesus. He also fights against something that infuriates him: moon landing conspiracy theories. When deniers claim Apollo was faked, Duke's response is simple and direct: "Sir, I was there." He worries that when the last moon walkers die, misinformation will drown out truth. If that happens, he's warned, one of humanity's greatest achievements will be stolen by lies. But Duke's primary mission isn't defending Apollo's legacy. It's delivering a message he considers far more important. "I say my walk on the moon lasted for 3 days and it was a great adventure," Duke has told countless audiences. "But my walk with God lasts forever." He wants people to understand that achievement, even the most extraordinary achievement imaginable, cannot fill the human heart. He climbed the highest ladder available to mankind in the 20th century. He stood where only 11 other humans have ever stood. And he came home empty. "You can travel to the moon and still be empty," Duke has said. "Only Jesus gave me peace." That's the revelation Duke has spent the last 46 years sharing. Not secrets about what NASA hid. Not conspiracies about what he saw in the lunar shadows. Just a straightforward testimony from a man who walked on another world and discovered it wasn't enough. He still supports space exploration. He's excited about NASA's Artemis program and its goal of returning humans to the moon. "Hopefully I'm still here when we get the next crew to land on the moon," he said recently. He sees the moon as a stepping stone to Mars, a continuation of the adventure he helped begin. But for Duke personally, the greatest journey wasn't the 238,000 miles to the lunar surface. It was the 6-year journey from bored celebrity to committed believer. The family photograph he left on the moon has almost certainly faded to nothing by now. The extreme temperatures have destroyed the image. But somewhere in the Descartes Highlands, a small piece of plastic still lies in the gray dust, a permanent marker that a father once wanted his children to share in his adventure. "Walking on the moon was great," Duke says. "But the even better walk is walking with Jesus. And we can all do that." That's the real story Charles Duke wants you to know. Not mysteries. Not conspiracies. Just truth from one of the last men alive who walked on another world. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. What surprised you most about Duke's journey? Click the next video for more incredible stories from the Apollo era. See you there. This version keeps the emotional weight, all quotes, timeline details, and personal reflections while sounding fresh and natural. Let me know if you'd like any small tweaks.